In 1850, the United States Census recorded 23,191,876 people. Not approximately. Not estimated. Exactly that number. The British Census, conducted the following year, counted 20,816,351 residents across England, Wales, and Scotland. Again, precise to the individual. This level of detail appeared suddenly, replacing decades of rounded estimates and regional guesswork that had characterized population counting since the founding of both nations. What changed wasn't technology. The 1850 census used the same basic tools as the 1840 census: paper forms, door-to-door enumerators, and manual compilation. Yet the 1840 U.S. Census recorded its totals in broad categorical blocks, often missing entire demographic details. The 1850 census recorded names, ages, occupations, birthplaces, literacy status, and property values for every household. The administrative infrastructure required to process this level of detail, standardized forms, trained staff, regional coordination offices, data verification systems, appeared fully formed, without the decades of gradual development typically required to build such institutional capacity. This is a documentary exploration of that transition. The interpretations presented here are observational, not conclusive. Multiple frameworks exist to explain these patterns, and this script examines them without endorsing any single view. The 1850 U.S. Census wasn't just more detailed. It was systematically different. Every enumeration district used identical forms. Every enumerator followed the same instruction manual, a 32-page standardized document that defined terms, explained procedures, and outlined quality control mechanisms. These manuals were distributed across 30 states and multiple territories, creating uniformity from Maine to California, despite the logistical challenges of communicating across such distances in an era when cross-country mail could take weeks. The British experience mirrored this transformation. The 1851 census marked the first time the United Kingdom recorded full household schedules with individual-level data. The forms asked for exact ages, not age ranges. They required specific occupations, not general categories. The system processed approximately 6 million households, each one documented with the same level of precision, compiled into regional summaries, and then aggregated into national totals, all within months of collection. The timing stands out. Both nations implemented these systems within a year of each other, despite having different political structures, different administrative traditions, and limited formal coordination between their statistical offices. The institutional capacity required to execute this transition, printing standardized forms in quantities of millions, training thousands of enumerators, establishing verification protocols, building data compilation infrastructure, appeared in both countries simultaneously. Consider the enumerator training alone. The 1850 U.S. Census employed approximately 3,200 assistant marshals, each responsible for an enumeration district. These individuals needed to understand complex instructions, maintain consistency across diverse populations, and deliver completed forms to central processing locations. The training infrastructure to prepare this workforce, instruction manuals, regional supervisors, quality control mechanisms, materialized fully operational, without documented pilot programs or gradual implementation phases that typically precede large-scale administrative rollouts. The data compilation process presents similar observations. The 1850 census results were published in 1853, just 3 years after collection. This required clerks to manually transcribe millions of individual records, aggregate them into district totals, verify accuracy, and compile them into printed volumes. The British Census Office completed similar work on a comparable timeline. The staffing, facilities, and organizational systems needed to process this volume of information appeared capable of handling the workload immediately, without the bottlenecks or delays that might be expected from a newly established operation. The architectural dimension adds another layer. Both the US and UK built census offices in the late 1840s, permanent facilities designed specifically for decennial data collection and processing. These weren't temporary arrangements or repurposed buildings. They were purpose-built institutions with dedicated staff, specialized work areas, and storage capacity for decades of future records. The investment in permanent infrastructure preceded the first use of the detailed census systems, suggesting advanced planning for a level of administrative complexity that hadn't yet been implemented. The standardization extended beyond forms and procedures. The 1850 census introduced statistical categories that remain recognizable today: household structure, occupational classifications, age brackets for demographic analysis. These frameworks appeared complete, not as rough drafts or experimental systems. The British census adopted similar categorical structures in 1851, creating parallel statistical architectures in both nations within the same narrow time window. The transition feels compressed. The 1840 U.S. Census used 6 basic questions. The 1850 census used dozens, organized into complex schedules covering population, mortality, agriculture, manufacturing, and social statistics. This wasn't incremental reform, it was wholesale system replacement. The institutional knowledge required to design these forms, implement collection procedures, train personnel, and process results would typically accumulate over multiple census cycles. Instead, it appeared fully functional in a single implementation. Other nations experienced similar transitions during the same period. France reorganized its census system in 1851. Prussia implemented detailed household enumeration in 1849. Belgium introduced standardized statistical categories in 1846. The pattern suggests coordination or parallel development across multiple countries, despite the practical challenges of international communication in an era when information traveled at the speed of sailing ships and early telegraph systems that were still being deployed. The administrative capacity this required was substantial. Census bureaus needed physical space, trained staff, funding mechanisms, legal authority, and public cooperation. These elements appeared aligned in multiple nations within a few years of each other, creating a synchronized transformation in how governments understood and documented their populations. The timing raises questions about whether this reflects independent parallel development or something else. A shared institutional template, perhaps, that multiple governments implemented during the same period. The 1850 transition marks a boundary. Before it, population data was approximate, regional, and inconsistent. After it, governments possessed detailed, standardized, individual-level information about their populations. The infrastructure required to create this level of documentation, legal frameworks, trained bureaucracies, processing facilities, statistical methodologies, materialized rapidly, functioning effectively from the first implementation. This pattern of sudden institutional precision appears in other administrative systems during the same era, creating a broader context that the census transformation wasn't isolated. It appeared alongside other administrative systems that emerged with similar simultaneity across the United States and United Kingdom during the 1840s and 1850s. The pattern repeats. Infrastructure designed for complexity that hadn't yet manifested, built to specifications that seemed to anticipate future demands rather than respond to existing needs. Consider the postal systems. The United States reorganized its postal service in 1847, introducing standardized postage stamps and uniform rate structures. Britain had implemented the penny post in 1840, a nationwide system that charged the same rate regardless of distance, supported by a network of sorting facilities, delivery routes, and administrative offices that appeared capable of handling national-scale mail volume from the first day of operation. Both systems required extensive infrastructure. Regional sorting centers, trained postal workers, standardized procedures, and coordination mechanisms spanning entire countries. The processing capacity preceded the demand. The 1840 British postal system handled approximately 169 million letters in its first year, triple the volume of the previous year. The infrastructure absorbed this surge without systemic failure, suggesting the facilities, staffing, and organizational systems were built for volumes that hadn't existed when construction began. The American postal expansion followed a similar trajectory, with new regional hubs opening across territories where population density was still developing, creating capacity before the communities grew to fill it. Railway development amplifies this observation. The Erie Canal, completed in 1825, stretched 363 miles across terrain that required 83 locks and multiple aqueducts. The engineering specifications, lock dimensions, canal depth, structural reinforcement, were standardized across the entire route, creating uniform capacity for boats that were, in many cases, built after the canal opened. The infrastructure established the standard, the vessels adapted to match it. The British railway system shows parallel characteristics. By 1850, Britain had constructed over 6,000 miles of track, connecting cities across England, Scotland, and Wales. The gauge standards, station architecture, scheduling systems, and safety protocols appeared coordinated from early implementation, creating interoperability across lines built by different companies in different regions. The administrative systems required to manage this network, timetabling, ticketing, maintenance schedules, personnel coordination, functioned effectively from the outset, without the trial and error periods typical of new transportation infrastructure. The timing is compressed. The Liverpool and Manchester Railway opened in 1830. 20 years later, Britain possessed a comprehensive national rail network with standardized practices, established maintenance systems, and institutional knowledge embedded in railway companies, government oversight bodies, and engineering firms. The learning curve appears accelerated, as if the institutional frameworks were understood in advance rather than discovered through experience. American railway expansion followed similar patterns. The Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, chartered in 1827, used construction techniques and organizational models that were replicated across dozens of railway companies within 2 decades. The standardization wasn't mandated by central authority, it emerged through apparent convergence, with different companies independently adopting similar track gauges, similar station designs, similar operational procedures. The consistency suggests shared templates or inherited knowledge rather than parallel invention. Urban infrastructure development reflects the same characteristics. Water systems, gas lighting networks, and sewage infrastructure appeared in American and British cities during the 1840s and 1850s with engineering specifications that seem over-designed for contemporary populations. Philadelphia's Fairmount Water Works, completed in the 1820s, could pump 20 million gallons daily, far exceeding the city's immediate needs. London's sewer system, redesigned by Joseph Bazalgette in the 1850s, was built to serve a population larger than the one that existed when construction began. The capacity calculations present questions. Engineers designing these systems had to estimate future population growth, project water consumption patterns, and calculate infrastructure loads decades in advance. The systems they built proved adequate, in many cases remaining functional well into the 20th century. The forecasting accuracy seems remarkable for an era without computers, demographic modeling software, or historical precedent for urban growth at industrial scale. Storage and warehouse facilities show similar patterns. Port cities constructed massive grain elevators, warehouses, and storage facilities in the 1840s and 1850s, structures designed to handle commodity volumes that aligned with later agricultural production rather than contemporary output. Buffalo's grain elevators, built starting in 1842, could store millions of bushels. The infrastructure anticipated the Midwest's agricultural expansion, creating storage capacity before the wheat arrived to fill it. Administrative buildings reflect this forward planning. Customs houses, government offices, and municipal buildings constructed during this period were built at scales that seemed disproportionate to the populations they served at the time. The United States Custom House in New York, begun in 1833 and completed in 1842, occupies an entire city block, a massive granite structure designed for administrative functions that would require decades to fully utilize. Similar buildings appeared in other American cities and across Britain, creating permanent institutional architecture for government functions that were still expanding. The educational infrastructure shows comparable characteristics. The Common School movement in the United States built thousands of standardized schoolhouses during the 1840s and 1850s, implementing uniform curricula, teacher training programs, and administrative oversight systems. Britain's education reforms during the same period created similar structures. Standardized schools, teaching protocols, and inspection systems that appeared coordinated across regions. The institutional frameworks materialized with remarkable consistency, despite the decentralized nature of educational governance in both countries. Public health systems emerged with similar timing. Sanitation boards, health inspectors, quarantine protocols, and vital statistics collection, the administrative machinery of public health, appeared in American and British cities during the 1840s and 1850s. These weren't gradual accumulations of practice. They were systematic implementations of comprehensive frameworks that included legal authority, trained personnel, enforcement mechanisms, and data collection infrastructure. The documentation systems underlying all of this, property records, corporate charters, legal registries, birth and death certificates, became standardized during the same period. Governments established permanent archives, implemented consistent record-keeping formats, and created indexing systems that made historical documents retrievable. The archival infrastructure appeared capable of handling volumes that would accumulate over decades, built to specifications that anticipated long-term institutional memory rather than immediate needs. Whether this reflects inherited institutional templates, coordinated reform movements, or parallel innovation driven by industrial-era challenges, the pattern remains. Systems appeared ready for complexity they hadn't yet encountered, built to standards that proved durable across generations. The 1850 census sits within this broader context, one example among many of administrative precision emerging suddenly across multiple domains. The question becomes, if these systems weren't built in response to existing demands, what were they built in response to? The label some use to describe this pattern is Tartaria. The word appears in historical maps and documents as a geographic designation, a vast territory across Central Asia, used by European cartographers from the 16th through 19th centuries. The term described regions that were poorly understood, inconsistently mapped, and culturally distant from Western Europe. It wasn't a unified empire or single civilization. It was a label of convenience, grouping diverse peoples and territories under one name because detailed knowledge was limited. The modern reinterpretation transforms this geographic term into something different, a framework for understanding patterns in 19th century infrastructure, architecture, and administrative systems. Those who use this lens suggest that the institutional precision, the over-engineered infrastructure, and the synchronized administrative development across Western nations might reflect inheritance rather than innovation. They propose that the systems appeared complete because they were adaptations of existing templates, not inventions built from scratch. This interpretation exists alongside others. Mainstream historical scholarship attributes the patterns to Industrial Revolution pressures, international knowledge exchange, and parallel development driven by similar challenges. The coordination between nations in this view reflects deliberate information sharing, engineers studying each other's work, governments observing successful reforms abroad, professional networks spreading best practices across borders. A third perspective emphasizes evolutionary accumulation. The systems that appeared in the 1840s and 1850s from this angle represent the culmination of decades of experimentation that happened less visibly, pilot programs, failed attempts, gradual refinement that doesn't always leave clear documentary evidence. The institutional knowledge might have developed incrementally, even if the final implementation appeared sudden. Each framework accounts for different elements of the evidence. The inheritance model explains the consistency and scale. The parallel development model explains the timing and international similarities. The evolutionary model explains the functional sophistication without requiring rapid learning curves. The census precision of 1850 sits at the intersection of these interpretations. The administrative capacity to count 23 million Americans with individual-level detail appeared fully formed, but so did the legal frameworks authorizing it, the printing capacity to produce millions of forms, and the public willingness to participate. These elements could represent inherited institutional memory, coordinated international reform, or the visible endpoint of longer developmental processes. The year 1816 adds context. The eruption of Mount Tambora in 1815 created the year without a summer, global climate disruption, crop failures, social upheaval. Some interpretations suggest this event marked a civilizational discontinuity, after which administrative systems were rebuilt or reorganized. The census reforms, the infrastructure projects, the standardized institutions, all appeared in the decades following 1816, potentially representing reconstruction rather than original construction. This remains interpretive. The documentary evidence shows infrastructure appearing, systems functioning, institutions operating with unexpected sophistication. The explanatory framework, whether inheritance, coordination, or evolution, depends on which patterns receive emphasis and which assumptions guide interpretation. And the questions embedded in that sequence remain unresolved. The tunnels don't explain themselves. The Tartaria framework in its modern usage doesn't justify functions itself. As metaphor as much as timing doesn't resolve itself. It names the observation that 19th century administrative systems engineering journalistically and census ledgers, that infrastructure often preceded measurable, demand, undeniable, that institutional knowledge appeared concentrated rather than gradually accumulated. So soon, whether this reflects literal inheritance from previous civilization, silent, shared templates from coordinated reform, or simply the acceleration characteristic of industrial era development remains unresolved. At the scale, evidence invites examination without requiring continues to invite investigation. The census records exist. The pattern is there. Precise, standardized, systematically collected. The infrastructure remains. Railways, canals, water systems built to specifications that proved durable. The administrative documents survive. Training manuals, procedural guidelines, organizational frameworks that functioned effectively from implementation. What this represents depends on the questions asked and the frameworks applied. The patterns are observable. The interpretations remain open. The institutional precision of 1850 marks a boundary in how governments understood and documented their populations, a transformation that appeared rapidly, functioned effectively, and established templates that persisted for generations. The mystery isn't whether the change happened. The mystery is how it happened so completely, so suddenly, across multiple nations and multiple domains simultaneously. The answer may lie in inherited knowledge, coordinated reform, evolutionary accumulation, or frameworks not yet fully articulated. The evidence remains. The questions persist. The interpretations continue to evolve.